What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 42, Episode 11. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and this episode we saw the return of Do or Die, and I have a lot of feelings about it. So it's going to be spicy when we get to that part of the episode. So buckle in, as the kids say.
Yeah, so starting off with the confessional count, the most confessional getter, the person still in the lead that we've been tracking throughout the season is still Mike. He has 43 confessionals after this episode. Drea, who was voted out this episode, was in third place with 34 confessionals. Omer is in second place with 36 confessionals. Marianne is right in the middle there with 29 confessionals, which I thought was interesting because I felt like I would have guessed she was second place in number of confessionals, not fourth.
I guess it depends on how you count confessionals, because I feel like Marianne gets a lot of screen time where she's like on the screen talking to someone, and it's like kind of talking about the game, but it's not like her talking to the camera. So
Yeah, that's probably why it seems like she would be higher up in the number of confessionals because she's definitely on the screen a lot, like you were saying, talking with other people or saying her plans with another person. And then the least number of confessionals. It's still Jonathan and Lindsay. They were tied for the lowest number of confessionals last week, but now we have a third person with the lowest number of confessionals tied with them down there with 24 confessionals. Romeo, Lindsay, and Jonathan are all the least number of confessional getters now.
which is want for them, but confessional count is always interesting to look at because there are people who have like high confessional counts just because they're a good character, but not necessarily because they're a good game player. And I feel like Mike is definitely drifting into this category because the man thinks that he orchestrated High's blindside, and it's like, oh, honey, no.
I thought it was really funny how Mike was saying he planned High's votes from the start. I really wonder now, like, if Mike is watching this back and he realizes that Omer tricked him into voting High out. So it's sort of like a oopsie versus on the island. He was like, yeah, I've always wanted High out. High backstabbed me. I wanted to get him out. But realizing, oh no, someone else actually made up a completely fake lie to get you to target this other person.
Yeah, and I almost feel bad for Mike because I'm sure that looking back on this, he's like, "Oh no!" But that was it. That was a
It was
time.
it's funny as a viewer, we get to see all sides. So we know like, oh, that's an oopsie for Mike, but in the moment, Mike is riding high on getting high out of the game. Another funny thing also here was Romeo saying after tribal council that this was the vote that he enjoyed the most. He's wanted high out for a long time. And I was like, what the? You were the like the two people, you and High, as in Romeo and High, were the two people that voted the wrong way last week. Like he voted with High. So I just thought it was so funny how Romeo keeps on voting incorrectly. And we said, oh, maybe it's strategically for the shot in the dark. But even this week, he just voted wrong again. So maybe he's just out of the loop. So I just thought it was funny that he said, oh, yeah, I wanted High out too. That was a great vote.
Romeo totally got shat on this entire episode as well because I feel like the only time we saw him was when people were talking about how greedy he is with the rice, and it's like Romeo is such a skinny dude, and I get that he like needs calories because he doesn't have any body fat anymore, but oh man, that poor guy. Like, I wonder if there's a point where Survivor like producers will pull you out because the amount of weight that you've lost is like dangerous because Romeo literally just looks like a skeleton at this point.
Yeah, I think like for Debbie, she was very skinny after her times on Survivor. Like she weighed less than 100 pounds. So, like, for a grown person to weigh less than 100 pounds, that can get dangerous, if you don't have the weight and body fat to keep your like internal organs going. Like that could be very dangerous.
Yeah. And I guess like Romeo definitely wasn't the only one who was feeling the like lack of food thing because Jonathan he apparently has been eating the same amount as everyone else, despite like he must be at least double Romeo's size, if not more. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting because like we see sometimes people getting flack if they're like a bigger guy who says like, "Oh, I need more food because I'm a bigger guy." And I feel like a lot of people were ripping into Jonathan for complaining about the fact that he was hungry when he's eating the same amount of calories as someone half his size. And it's just like, damned if you do, damned if you don't with this kind of thing. Because it's
Yeah,
like, Jonathan also, I feel like, is the person expending the most calories. Because even just if you don't consider challenge performances, he's the one like going out and getting a lot of the fish and a lot of the other food that we've seen on screen. Like, I'm sure that other people are going out to gather coconuts or whatever. But like, I don't know. I think we talked a lot in Survivor South Africa about like what is a fair way to divide food, but I feel like in no universe can you call it fair that Jonathan and Romeo get the same portion of rice.
that's what I wrote in my notes too about Survivor South Africa. I said that Jonathan should do a Chappies and pull a Chappies because in Survivor South Africa, Chappies, bigger dude also, just started to collect food for himself. He would go and, store mussels and stuff in the ground and then sneak off at night and then go eat it. And then the bad thing that happened for him was that he was caught like hoarding food and just catching food and finding food just for himself and not sharing it with the rest of the people. And like that was one part of it. He was also sort of like stealing food from the team, but like that's a whole other story. But for him finding his own food and then just eating it on his own because he was caught, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But if Jonathan did that kind of thing and he wasn't caught, like Jonathan could go and find fish on his own, secretly eat it on his own, and then get those extra calories as well. Like, it would be interesting to see if more people did that on Survivor. Although, like we saw with Chappies, if you do get caught, people really, really like dislike you because they're like, why aren't you finding food for the team? Why are you just eating this for yourself?
I think it's hard too because fish has to be cooked in order for it to be like good. So I feel like it would be a lot harder to like secretly cook a whole fish
Yeah.
and like do that. So, and I think also the time to start doing that isn't after you're already starving. The time to start doing that is day one so that you can kind of like, he's going to lose weight no matter what, but that way he would like decelerate the weight of his weight loss or the rate of his weight loss. So,
Yeah, I just thought this scene with like everyone talking about food intake and then everyone was like Romeo is just always eating. He's never like leaves the shelter. He's always by the pot of rice. And then every single time anyone brought up Romeo's name, whether it was about Romeo eating or whether it was about the vote and they were saying, "Hey, let's vote Romeo," it always cut to Romeo alone squatting next to the pot of rice. I was like, the editors are like having their own inside joke here because maybe Romeo is like always at that spot, but like maybe they're just cutting in the same 2 or 3 clips to show Romeo just always at the pot.
yeah, I think it's funny because there's no way to know. But even if it was like, oh, only one time and they're interspersing clips, I feel like the fact that multiple people were talking about it means that it is like a well known phenomenon. So.
I was like, dang, these editors are having a field day just like splicing all of these Romeo with the rice pot together. It was sort of funny, but feels bad for Romeo if he's not actually like sitting at the pot all day and he's doing other things that like he's sort of the butt of the joke here. But I guess juxtaposed next to Jonathan not being able to eat, Jonathan had a confessional where he's sort of peeved saying, "Oh, I'm the provider," but he doesn't want people to see that he's the provider. But then he's also getting annoyed that people aren't praising him for being the provider. So it's sort of like a catch-22. I'm not sure how you can be a provider but not have people see that you're the provider, but then also want praise for something that you don't want people to see. It's sort of like, I don't know, you can't have all of that there, but I can see where his annoyance is coming from. But I really feel like in the modern game of Survivor, just being a provider in the game isn't going to win you the game like Jonathan maybe thinks it does here.
The thing is, people are getting upset with Jonathan for no longer being the provider without ever having thanked him for being the provider in the first place. like the whole thing with like the net where people were mad that he wasn't helping untangle the net. And it's like, y'all are grown ass people. You know how to untangle a net by yourself. So I don't know. The whole situation was just kind of like weird to me because it's like people are saying that Jonathan came off so negatively, and I didn't see that. I just saw a guy who was hangry, and I feel like he was shown to be justified in his hangriness because, like, I don't know. I feel like you could just see how like gone Jonathan was from lack of calories. Because like someone asked him a question and you could literally like see his brain have to turn because he was just so food deprived. It was kind of sad.
All of the like fighting in this scene, it sort of just reminded me of roommates bickering, like, oh, you didn't do the dishes today. And then they're like, oh, how come you didn't do the dishes yesterday? Like they're just all fighting over random things.
Yeah, so
Speaking of random, though, we see Marianne and her toes get its whole segment. I was like, they should be charging for these feet shots. They had a ton of close up shots of Marianne's toes. And then in the immunity challenge later, they also had a bunch of close up shots of feet. I was like, that's some good money there. They shouldn't just stick that out on Survivor for free. Marianne should be charging.
yeah, that was it was kind of weird that they were so focused on Marianne's toes. Like it was a funny like segment when Lindsay was like, there's not a normal amount of times for your toenail to fall off, and Marianne was like, oh really? So it was a good lighthearted moment after all of, or before, after, during all of the like food drama.
Yeah, like, she says that she loses her pinky toe, like, 2 to 3 times a year. I Googled, like, if it's normal to lose your toenails like that, and Google said, like, it can be normal, but, like, it could be a cause for concern for other, like, underlying issues, like fungal infection or things like that. I had a friend in college who, like, just always never had a toenail on his big toe too, so maybe this is more common than we all think.
I'm just stunned by that, but okay.
Yeah, some toenail chat in Survivor. I feel like Marianne gets a lot of these, like, you know, one-off comments that are like sort of weird but cause a lot of like conversation online, sort of like her Tocantins comment about not seeing like 6 episodes there. So I feel like she gets a lot of this like funny random content.
Yeah, like she definitely gets a lot of like personable content.
Yeah. So we go to the immunity challenge, and Jeff is talking to the camera again, where I low key feel like he was lying to us as the viewer. Jeff said that this twist was great for people on the bottom last season. I would argue that that's not really true. Jeff was also saying Deshaun last season played the do or die when he was in a sticky situation, and it worked out for him because he made it to the final 3, which I thought was sort of revisionist history because if he didn't win the do or die, he would have been out at final 7. Like, because he played the do or die and won doesn't necessarily mean that he was guaranteed final 3. And Deshaun, after he lost the immunity challenge and was the first one to drop, was really sad and angry that he was the first out of the challenge. It's not like he planned to drop to be the do or die person. So it just felt like Jeff was lying to us about what happened in 41.
Yeah, especially because like Deshaun making it to the end isn't actually that big of a deal considering he did not win. Like I feel like it would have been a better story for Jeff if it was like an intentional misstep and Deshaun was the winner of the season. But
Yeah, it's hard though, because it's not like someone's purposefully going to drop first here to do a game of chance because they don't know what that game of chance is. So just saying, like, this person, this one example that we have, he did it and he made it to final 3. You should do it too. Like, that's not a good stamp of approval. Like, that is one case scenario. And Deshaun did so many other things to get him to the final 3 spot, not just playing do or die and winning it.
yeah, so I won't talk anymore about how much I hate do or die, but I hate do or die.
So, Lindsay and Jonathan are the only 2 people to choose to compete in the challenge, which makes sense for everyone to not compete. Initially, I felt really bad for Lindsay because if she thought, hey, maybe 4 people are going to compete, like maybe it's going to be me, Jonathan, Drea, and Mike, are going to compete in this challenge, it's a little bit more fair because you're not like 50% chance of the one to be the first person to drop. So like I don't know, I felt bad at first, but then from like her talking later saying, "Yeah, it was my competitive nature that got the best of me and made me compete here. It was a mistake." It did seem to her to realize that like it was probably going to be her and Jonathan as the only two people competing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to feel bad about this when Lindsay didn't get sent home because of it. Like, I feel like I would be like, oh, Lindsay, a lot more if she had gone home because she like let her pride get in the way. But
Revisionist history. I
yeah,
wonder what would happen if Jonathan was the only one to compete. Say that Lindsay realizes, hey, I shouldn't compete, going up against Jonathan, even though she has won twice and Jonathan has won an immunity. Maybe not a good idea to go up against Jonathan, and she decides to sit out too. Does Jonathan automatically, he would win automatically immunity, but then is do or die dead? No one gets do or died? Or did Jonathan get immunity and also do or die twisted?
I feel like if that were the case, they would just have to get automatic immunity and then maybe make like everyone else go to rocks or something. Like, I feel like there would have to be some punishment for people not being willing to do the do or die. And I guess, like, conversely, what if everybody or nobody decides to do or die? What if everyone's like, nah, I'm good? I feel like that's a more interesting case to talk about than just one person doing it.
That's true. It would seem if just Jonathan competed, he would get auto immunity and maybe do or die would get canceled. But yeah, from what you're saying, I don't think Jeff would just cancel a whole entire advantage and just be like, oh, because no one competed, hee, this is safety for everyone. No one has to do this game of chance later. I think what you're saying seems more true, where, haha, all the people who sat out actually have to draw rocks or some way to figure out who gets do or died at the end of the episode, because it does seem like they wouldn't want to waste a twist and just like because no one volunteered to do it.
I mean, I would like the contestants of season 43 to stage some sort of uprising, a protest of how stupid this twist is. So, if you are cast for season 43, please consider this.
Yeah, more like 44. 43 started filming, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they get the do or die at Final 7. But Jonathan wins this challenge. I feel like similar to like the other immunity challenge he won, which was the balancing on that little triangle A-frame on the water. Very similar to this one. It seems like for these kinds of challenges where if you step off, you lose the challenge, Jonathan goes to this other kind of place. He gets in the zone where Jonathan would never, ever in a million years step off of this challenge unless it was like a medevac situation. For these power of wills challenges, Jonathan seems to go to some other place that he won't lose these.
I feel like he has really good practice with that just because he has been like an athlete and a competitor for such a long time. Like, I imagine doing like however many push-ups with 100 pounds on your back isn't something that you do like easily. So I wonder if that's kind of like a muscle that you have to work out. And because Jonathan has been doing like big physical feats for such a long time, he's like able to work out that like the zone muscle.
Maybe it's sort of like zoning out and getting rid of all of that pain. Like if you have pain in your feet, you just don't have pain in your feet because you're like thinking about other things and able to like compartmentalize that. That's interesting because I feel like for a lot of us, we'd probably be like, oh yeah, my feet hurt. I need to step down. But he seems like he pushes through that pain.
Yeah. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah, and with all this Lindsay content this episode, I want to see Lindsay on the challenge now too. I think she seems really cool. We see that she's very competitive and she's very athletic as well. So I think Lindsay would be cool on the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she would be. I would like to see more of her personality. Just because I thought when she lost the do or die, that explained like how little of an edit she's been getting, but
That's true. So, should the do or die twist come back? I think the answer is no.
oh. I think what frustrates me the most is that neither time did the do or die twist work the way it was like supposed to. Because the whole thing was both Deshawn and Lindsay like stayed in the game despite making the statistically wrong choice in the Monty Hall problem. And that just like it blows my mind.
I think that going home on a game of chance is just bad for the game of Survivor. Like, you need to be voted out of this show, of this game. That is like the whole premise of this TV show. It's sort of like crappy. Oh, you go home in a 1 in 3, 1 in 2 chance by picking a random box. Like, Lindsay wasn't going to be the person voted out here if she wasn't the do or die person and she didn't pick the correct box here and was sent home. Like, Lindsay was probably safe this episode. So, I mean, I guess the twist makes it somewhat better because they got to choose whether they could compete or not. So it's sort of like, okay, it's your own fault if you got do or die twisted because you chose to compete. But it's still, at the end of the day, a game of chance. It's not even like another challenge that you have to do. You're literally picking a random box. Like, that's not how Survivor should work.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to just rein myself in before I start just saying how stupid it is on repeat, but fine.
And like we talked about last week at the end of last week's podcast about all of the advantages that happen or all the twists that happen at tribal council, like this is the final 7 vote and you're going to stick do or die. Like we said last week, you know, final 12 is the hourglass, final 10 is the 2 split tribals, and then here final 7 we have the do or die twist. So it's sort of like we've had 2 regular votes since the merge, and final 8-7 are so important. Like, that's really where the end game gets set up usually for Survivor. That distinguishes who's going to win the game, who's set up correctly, and who's not going to win the game. So it's just sort of crappy that we have so many of these tribal council twist votes where they should be regular votes, because if Lindsay went home, it's sort of, I don't know, stifles the momentum that this game was going for this episode, because if Lindsay did go home here, we wouldn't have seen the whole, oh, Drea, Mike, Romeo potential split vote here.
And also, we wouldn't have gotten Drea calling out Omer for telling Mike about the knowledge is power advantage. And so, yeah, it definitely does what you said, where it kind of like breaks the momentum. And it isn't fun. It isn't fun for the players. It isn't fun for the viewers. Like, I can't imagine that it's fun for Jeff, unless it is.
Jeff seems to be loving it. He's eating it up when Lindsay's up there picking the boxes. So it's really like, what's the point of the do or die twist then? Because it's either choice A, Lindsay goes home, or like we've been saying, choice B, it doesn't matter because the person stays and it's just like, oh, another immunity necklace. Lindsay could have been the second person to win a safety or immunity necklace, or maybe she played an idol, and then you would get a similar kind of vote or reaction. It just messes up the momentum, and sort of someone random goes home each time, because like Lindsay wasn't going to be on the chopping block here if she didn't win immunity. Like, if Jonathan didn't win, he seemingly was on the chopping block, and then if he still won, Lindsay wasn't the backup vote there. It was going to be Drea, Mike, or Romeo seemingly as the backup plan.
Yeah. I'm glad though that this time around they did have like a stronger backup plan, because I feel like, maybe this is me remembering incorrectly, but I feel like in 41 they all seemed pretty confident that Deshawn was going home, and their like backup plan was like a just in case thing. Like, everyone seemed very confident that Deshawn would go home last season, and this season I feel like people definitely planned more on the contingencies.
And if you're planning on these contingencies and Lindsay did go home, your whole game could be blown up next week if like Mike and Drea are talking and they corroborate stories about the knowledge is power, or if word gets back that, hey, Drea was going to steal your idol, Mike, but then Drea could be like, no, I wasn't going to do that because Lindsay went home. There's no proof that anything of that nature was going to happen. It could really blow up a lot of things because people created these contingency plans for no reason if the do or die twist worked.
Yeah, so I do think that Drea going home with everything in her pockets is hopefully going to make the upcoming votes at least a little bit better, because Drea going home with an idol and part of the amulet in her pockets is a good thing. And she had one other thing, a steal a vote. I feel like
she played the knowledge is power, and she had that amulet, and she had the extra vote, but she played all the
extra
things.
vote, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like Drea going home with stuff in her pocket is just good as far as taking extra advantages out of the game. And hopefully, since it's so close to Final Five, they won't put that stuff back in. So
Yeah, I guess Drea playing all of her advantages this round. If Lindsay went home, she would still have them for next round, and they could have been played kind of thing. Versus her playing them this round, it gets them out of the game, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, so plans before Tribal Council. Romeo's name was coming up as an easy vote, as someone to vote out. Drea's name coming up as a final 3 threat. Mike's name was coming up as a threat to win the vote, and Mike was saying that he was going to maybe play his idol this round. And Drea tells Omer about the knowledge is power advantage. So very, very bad. It's very similar to Drea telling Tori and Swati about the extra vote back in the pre-merge. Because then Omer goes and tells Lindsay about the knowledge is power. Lindsay says, hey, what if we told Mike about the knowledge is power and got Mike to give us his idol to keep him safe? And I just thought it was so fun how 2 seasons, because the knowledge is power advantage was told to other people, they strategized around it, and they strategized around it in the exact same way without having ever seen that other season. I thought that was really fun and cool that both 41 and 42 did this exact same thing when they knew about the knowledge is power.
I feel like the thing is, that's like the most obvious solution.
Yeah, but it is the fault of the person who had the knowledge is power and was telling other people when they should have kept it a secret. So it's sort of funny that the cat came out of the bag twice.
Yeah. But that's why you don't tell anyone anything. And I gotta say, I'm very proud that Marianne still hasn't told anyone about her idol.
Yeah, it really felt like because of the do or die twist episode, this episode, that the whole knowledge is power and stealing the idol kind of thing was sort of glazed over. I really wish we got more of this and it was a bigger moment. How last season with Xander and Liana and Evie and Tiffany, it was like a super, super big moment. It sort of felt like Drea trying to steal the idol from Mike and then Mike giving it to Omer sort of just got glossed over. Like people aren't going to remember that part of the episode, but they'll remember Lindsay's do or die choice.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of a footnote because Drea asked, she didn't get it, and then she was immediately voted out.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's sort of a bummer. I liked how last season it was edited where we were like, oh my gosh, on the edge of our seats. Did they give the idol to the right person? Is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? Is Liana going to get it right?
That was one of the major plots of the episode.
Yeah, see, that's another problem with the do or die because it could have been the major plot if do or die wasn't there, but because of do or die, it was sort of like if they showed us all of this before they went to tribal council and then it didn't happen, it would sort of be like, dang, if Lindsay won do or die, imagine that tribal council that we could have had if she didn't get sent home. So it's just weird that like you have this contingency plan that may be tribal council, that may not be tribal council. And then that's why it was glossed over.
Yeah. I'm fine. It's fine. We don't need to rant about this. I'm zen.
So, I think voting out Drea makes more sense because she's a huge winner contender versus Mike, like we saw last week, is maybe more easily manipulated. So it makes maybe more sense to keep Mike around for the time being.
Yeah. Mike definitely thinks that he's the chess master, but he is just a pawn.
Oh. So Lindsay, she gets to do her do or die choice at tribal council. Yeah, she does the Monty Hall problem wrong, just like we saw Deshawn last season. And I was like, what are the chances of 2 people doing it wrong, but actually getting it right? I'm like, dang, this is wild.
I mean, it's a 1 in 9 chance, right? Because it's 1 in 3 that they'll get the Monty Hall problem right.
Yeah, or even 50% point one over 2 times 1 over 2, because after you make the choice, you're supposed to switch, which Hai was saying, "Oh, yeah, you switch your choice," when he was on the jury seat, so
But it's not a 1 over 2 if you don't switch. It's supposed to be a 1/3 and then a 2/3. Because the idea is that if you have an equal chance of all 3 of them and then one of them is eliminated, that means that all of the chances that that one would have been the torch are now in the other one as well. So it's
yes,
a
yeah.
33-66 split, which is why you're supposed to switch. So you have a 1 in 3 shot if you stick with the one that you originally picked. So a 1 in 9 chance that it would be wrong both times, or that they would be right both times despite picking incorrectly.
Yeah, which is just wild. I was like, "What the heck?" This is supposed to eliminate someone.
Yeah, I wonder if they're just going to keep doing it until someone gets out because of it.
Maybe. I guess we'll see next season. But maybe not. Maybe this is something that they will get rid of or switch for next season. I feel like because Lindsay didn't get eliminated this episode, that her winner chances skyrocketed. I feel like she earned a ton of respect from her tribe mates and the jury because she was willing to go up against Jonathan in the challenge, and she was willing to go and do the do or die, whether she had a choice or not. But she really, really took it well. She wasn't like whining about it or crying about it, but she like went up there and did her thing and it worked out for her. So I feel like everyone really, really respects her.
I love Lindsay. I wish that we got to see more of her.
So we get to, because Lindsay is safe, we go into this new tribal council vote where Drea plays the knowledge is power. And I liked how production sat Drea and Mike next to each other at tribal council on the little chairs. It just shows like, okay, they think this might happen if Lindsay wins the do or die, but it might not amount to anything. They might not need to be sitting next to each other if the knowledge is power isn't coming into play. So I thought it was cool that like they planned it so if Lindsay's power worked and she was safe, that Mike and Dre were sitting next to each other for the knowledge is power moment.
Yes, that was fun and funky. I wonder, like, if they knew that was why they were sitting together.
I feel like you can read into it. We've seen other Survivor players read into like the tribal council seating charts. You know, like if they're seated next to certain people, and like a lot of times you can tell like one alliance is on one side and another alliance is on the other side for these kind of split votes. So it is interesting if you're in the game and you're reading into the seating chart at tribal council.
Yeah. But I wonder, like, how much can you read into the game? Or the seating, I mean. So
Guess we'll have to keep an eye out on it for future seasons, because it seems like, you know, when people are in the middle, they're usually seated in the middle. Then one alliance is on one side and the other alliance is on the other to sort of visually represent, like, hey, you know, person A and B are the swing votes this week. And maybe, you know, people are reading into that and Survivor is going to change it because it does seem, I guess, obvious for us as the viewer watching, like, yeah, those two are in the middle. Like they are the choice makers this episode.
I think that would be even more interesting if you were like certain that one person was on your side and then they were like placed in the middle instead. Like that would be fun.
Yeah. So with the knowledge is power, I really loved watching everyone's reactions here too. Everyone in the game, everyone on the jury. I was like, we got to slow mo this to see everyone's shocked faces because I just love watching people's reactions.
Me too.
So Drea went out swinging. She played all of her advantages. Nothing left that she could have done at this point because she played the knowledge is power. Can't really do anything with the amulet, and she played her extra vote here. So I feel like Drea and Hai were maybe the two winner contenders that have been voted out, and they're on the jury now, the more strategic players that we've seen. So I feel like those two would probably be invited back for another season. And Drea went out swinging, so I feel like she should be proud. There's nothing left that she could do at that point because she played all of her advantages.
She didn't play her idol though, right?
I guess she doesn't have an idol.
Didn't she have an idol?
I guess if the amulet became an idol, but Lindsay's.
No, didn't she say to Mike as she was leaving that she was leaving with 2 idols in her pocket? Was
No,
that not their whole thing?
No, I think she was saying she voted for Mike twice as the thing. Like, they were laughing over. Mike asked, "Did you put 2 votes on me?" And then Drea was like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I thought they were saying 2 in your pocket, as in she had 2 idols in her pocket. And I was like, I don't remember that, but maybe I just lost it all in the advantage get-in.
Okay, yeah, because that makes more
I'm
sense.
too old for this game. My
Oh my
memory isn't
gosh.
good enough.
Yeah,
That makes so much more sense.
yeah, because what you were saying earlier, I was a little confused by, but yeah, it makes more
Yeah,
sense. So
okay.
she played
That
everything.
makes sense. Wow, I'm dumb.
That's why they have those little like icons on the screen now, because with all these advantages, it is hard to keep track of who
Yeah,
has
but
what.
when I'm rewatching, I don't watch as closely, so I don't look up every time someone gets a confessional. So
Yeah, so Drea did play everything in her pocket, besides the amulet, but nothing you can really do because Lindsay probably wasn't going to link up with her here on this part. So Drea leaving, her exit was sort of funny, sort of weird. Especially because Mike held such a grudge over Chanel after Chanel voted for him. And then now he's like laughing and hugging Drea for putting 2 votes on him. I just thought it was so funny.
yeah, Mike's a weirdo, but we love him.
So, do you think Drea saying, "Hey, Omer, you are the only one I told about the knowledge is power," and "Hey, Mike, you're going to win this game if you get to the end," was good or bad? I guess for Mike and Omer.
Bad for both of them, because it puts a target on both of their backs.
Yeah, I guess I agree. I feel like it's sort of bad. I feel like Omer can sort of get out of it because it's like, "Oh, you were the only person I told about knowledge is power," but like what's that make you, that just makes you look like you share people's secrets, right? But it's like everyone
That's still
seemingly,
not good for you, though.
yeah, not really good, but it seems like everyone did want Drea out, so it's not like, oh, because he didn't tell Jonathan about the knowledge is power, that Jonathan is going to like hold a grudge against Omer about it. I feel like he could easily come up with like a lie or some kind of reasoning for why he told people about the knowledge is power, or why he only told Mike and Lindsay about the knowledge is power advantage. I feel like that's easier to get out of versus Mike, "Hey, you're going to win at the end." It's harder because if Mike does get to the end, he could say, like, "Yeah, I was the biggest target, even if he wasn't the biggest target to win at the game." Like, you could easily just revisionist history it and say, "Oh, yeah, Drea said I was going to win. You fools let me get here. Now I deserve to win."
I think one of the things is, though, Omer has so far been playing a strategy of being like really under the radar, and like people don't realize that he's the one masterminding a lot of these decisions. So I feel like it could cause some tension if people were suddenly like, "Oh, Omer's the reason that this person got out. Omer's the reason that this happened." Because Omer was kind of revealed to have been the mastermind behind Drea's thing. Because if Drea had been able to steal Mike's idol, she wouldn't have gone home.
That's true. It could put a target on Omer's back because if everyone thinks they're good with Omer and then they're like, "Oh, dang, Omer just cut Drea. Drea thought she was good with him." Could be a sticky situation. Depends if the Taku 4 are going to link up next episode or if they're actually going against each other again, like the preview shows. Or not. They might still want to go after each other, even though it could be a 4-2. And
Yeah.
Mike is the last green standing. Romeo is now the last blue standing. So who would have thunk that those two are the last 2 people on their teams here?
Not me.
So we go to next time. We have a lot of advantages. The shot in the dark technically should have ended here at Final 7. That's how it was last season. But I don't think Jeff said that the shot in the dark ended, or it has ended, but maybe he'll say next time at Final 6, like, "Yep, shot in the dark ended last time, guys. Like, sucks. No one used it." So shot in the dark is over, seemingly. Lindsay has the amulet idol now because Drea was voted out, and the amulet idol expires at Final 6, so Lindsay has to play the idol next time. Or she can not play it and be risky there. But if you have it, might as well play it. And then Marianne has an idol, Mike has an idol, and Marianne has the extra vote as well. So I feel like if Lindsay plays this amulet idol next time, which she should, to just ensure her safety. Unless she wins immunity, maybe she plays it for someone else, or maybe she just keeps it in her pocket. But say she doesn't win immunity, she plays it. I feel like it could cause an idol playing chain reaction where Marianne and Mike might also play their idols because there's only 6 people to vote for. And say Jonathan wins immunity, Lindsay plays an idol. I feel like we could have a chain similar to how, like, in Second Chance, where Kelly played her idol and then Jeremy played his idol. Like, it could be sticky next week.
Yeah. I guess I can't see a situation where all of them don't play their idols. And so it's basically just going to be down to who wins immunity as far as who will not get voted out, I guess.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to play it, especially if Marianne, Mike, Lindsay, and the immunity person are safe. That's 4 out of 6. Like, you're voting for 2 people here.
Yeah. So I guess it depends. I feel like in that case, whoever wasn't Romeo would get voted out, because I feel like Romeo is probably not going to win immunity, but he's like such the perfect goat at this point that I can't see anyone voting him out.
So it'd be Omer then, because chances are Jonathan would win immunity, and then if the other 4 are playing their idol advantages, it'd be Omer versus Romeo next week, which, dang. I feel like Omer's got to give Mike the idol back. He wouldn't keep that.
Yeah, I feel like you would not be able to justify that to a jury.
Yeah. Mike would not let Omer keep that idol. He would probably take it back unless Omer pretends to lose it like Daniel, and then Mike can complain about him in confessionals.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to see what happens next time. I feel like I kind of want everyone to kind of explode at Omer and for him to be voted out for strategic reasons and not just because he gets basically straight idled out. But that's just me.
Yeah, it'd be better if someone were voted out for strategic reasons, because if there weren't 4 people immune next time, I could see Omer making it to final 3. But because 4 people are immune and it's probably down to Omer versus Romeo next week, like you said, I think you have to vote Omer out here. Like, you're not going to keep him around, even if you like him enough.
Yeah. So Omer goes home next week, and then who knows what happens after that.
Yeah, 2 weeks left, I think. So the season is already coming to an end, which is wild.
Yeah. Sad.
Yep. End us out, Alyssa.
End us out, I guess. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of the do or die twist. Do you think that it should continue coming back until someone dies because of it? Do you think that it's good to be done? What do you think of Drea going home with having played everything that she had? What do you think about our theory that Omer is going home next week? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below.